at 10 o'clock, new license plate reader cameras are coming to Hannibal.
The City Council approved nearly $100,000 for their installation. WGEM's Gianni Peterson is live in Hannibal tonight. So Gianni, when should drivers expect to see these new readers?
As of now, there is no set date as to when the cameras will be installed, but the police department is hoping to get them up and running within the next few months. There are multiple potential concerns about these new cameras. Hannibal Police Chief Jacob Naki wants to let everyone know these readers are not like the other systems that are already in the city.
We do have a red light camera system that operates in some of our intersections, and this won't work like that. These cameras aren't designed to deal with any violations of the law, any traffic violations or things like that. It's essentially a police officer standing on the side of the road with a notepad writing it down.
Naki also wants you to know the information provided from these cameras will only be available to the department, and starting out, there will be a limited supply.
We're going to start with 10 cameras. I think that's a good starting point.
But at the same time, the placement of these cameras is catered to the residents.
When we looked at the maps, we looked and we really, you can come up with areas. A lot of people are probably going to want them closer to their neighborhoods in some areas. But we're kind of focusing on the main kind of connecting roadways that go in and out of the neighborhoods and the areas that are traveled common in town.
While the department sees the system as a positive, not everyone was convinced. City council members still had questions.
Well, I did vote yes, and I believe that it is a matter of public safety, and it's just one more tool, for our police and our law enforcement to use.
The matter of public safety is what ultimately got this measure passed. But until the department gets their camera set up, they will be working with other departments across the tri-states to help them better understand the cameras. Live in Hannibal, Gianni Peterson, WGEM News.
All right, thanks, Gianni. And Hannibal will be working with the Quincy Police Department to learn more about the system.